This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it is Wednesday. It's December 4th, 2024. Thank you for joining us on thetruthcentral.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. You can find me on X at CorsiJerome1, and you can find me on the website thetruthcentral.com and on Substack, JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. Now, God's Five Stones, if you take a look at it, we've been expanding the website. It's including now a lot of different states that we've covered to find algorithms. And we have the papers up there that are published by Andrew Paquette. If you click the four dashes, that's the new menu bar right after shining light on the darkness at the top of the website. And you click that and you'll see it comes down and says voter rolls analyses and my writings. And so therefore you've got Georgia, Arizona, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Well, this covers 3 of the 4 battleground states. You got Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And we also, I have a new report that Andrew Paquette just finished on California. There's one pending on Texas. And I want to report today that we've been in touch now with Donald Trump's lawyers, and we're going to have taken an interest in God's Five Stones and the algorithms. Now, what's developing is that a number of these cases are going to be examined in detail. And so therefore, vote switching that's gone on in Wisconsin with the Hovde election, this District 28 out in California. I've got one today I want to report. There's going to be court cases filed on these, but even more important than court cases, there's going to be criminal indictments. We're not fooling around with this any longer. What we've done at God's Five Stones, if you take a look and spend some time on the website, and Chris is showing you how to navigate around the website now. There's a good statement on here from Archbishop Vigano, and Archbishop Vigano shows, in fact, documents in detail that we are, responsible for having stopped the steal because we figured out these algorithms. Andrew Paquette figured them out, and so if you go to the various states and read the documents, you'll see them. And if you pull down those little bars at the top, very top, keep going up a little bit further. Well, it should be note that it's changed on that. You've got to refresh your browser because we've changed the navigation a little bit on the website. At least it is for the cell phones. Probably is the same way. This is probably the way it is on a laptop or desktop, but on the pull down menu is little bars in the top on the cell phone. We made sure it works on all the cell phones. So if you read these different reports, they're very detailed, and they'll be difficult for many people to read. But then again, if you go back to the main menu bar, I've gotten writings. I've done a lot of publications on American Thinker, on Gateway Pundit. These articles explain things much better. So Chris, pull down my writings, the tab on my writings, and people can see how they can read these various papers. Those are papers from, I believe that's American Thinker. And they're just really good articles in here that explain things much more detail. Okay, those articles you can read, and they'll give you another insight into what we're talking about, how the algorithms work. The algorithms are secret codes that are in the actual State Board of Election database computers, and they allow the creation of false voters. It's like a card marking scheme, which are then hidden back into the database, and the criminals can pull them out and vote them anytime they want. Since they don't exist, they have to get state ID numbers, which is part of the scheme. They have a legitimate state ID number, although they don't exist. And when they're pulled out of the pile, we need 30,000 votes right now to beat so-and-so. Well, okay, we'll pull out 33,000 of our clones and we'll vote them all. Nobody will get sent a mail-in ballot because you don't send a mail-in ballot to somebody who doesn't exist. but the computer will say they were sent, and then we'll print them out, run them through the machines, and since the numbers match, we'll have a big pile of these, 108,000 delivered from Milwaukee, 4 a.m. on election night to beat Hovde. Well, if there's a crime committed there, the people who did it are going to go to prison, and they may be charged with treason for trying to subvert constitutional rights to vote. The violation of the 14th Amendment, the franchise rights to vote are some of the most sacred rights we hold as Americans. Those who think they can fiddle with them, and these are intelligence agencies, these agencies need to be indicted, closed down for treason. We need to have some capital crimes here. It's not fooling around anymore. It's not a joke. Oh, look at how clever we are. Ha ha, we can steal an election. We can also be hanged to the gallows for treason. And God's Five Stones has the goods. We know how it was done. We know the mathematics. We know the scheme. And we're sharing it with the Trump lawyers. We're going for another round of donations. If you want to keep us going, we will be able to find, I'm sure, these schemes in all 50 states. And when we do that, we're going to have here a major, major reevaluation of voter security. These algorithms have been in the state databases since, some of them, 2004, others since 2008. I want to know how many current members of Congress, especially the House of Representatives, were elected by algorithms as opposed to the voters. And the pattern is clear. So if we go to the first article we want to cover today, we can see that NBC News is reporting that the Democrats have flipped the final House seat of the 2024 election. Well, bravo, Democrats. You guys are criminals. So Democrat Adam Gray has flipped the Senate's 13th district. And then here the NBC News is cheering it on. Well, after they continued voting and continued finding votes until they had enough to flip the election, then they stopped and get it certified. This is exactly the scheme that they did in 2020. They didn't call the election on election night because they didn't get the guy they wanted to win. So what they did is they kept counting, they kept producing ballots. I'm sure I want to look, these guys can be caught. And I've been working on computers since most of the people listening to this program were born. I've been working on computers since the 1960s. When you had to do it in Fortran and all kinds of other languages. I've written books on debugging computer programs. I was going to write a book on assembly language. I just finally decided it wasn't worth doing. But the point is, just two people would be interested in it. This was the very, very early days of PCs. This was in the 1980s that I was doing some of those books, but I've been working on computers since the 60s. I've been working on elections as an undergraduate and not a senior, an undergraduate sophomore. My professors in political science would take me downtown to WJW TV in Cleveland, on Euclid Avenue, or at the Case Western Reserve, and I would work the computer systems and call elections as they were going on, and the professors would get on TV and tell people what was going on in the election. But I've been doing this for a long time. Excuse me, I've gotten a cold. I've been working 12 and 14-hour days, and but we've made enormous progress. And I can tell you for sure that the Trump criminals are going to be caught. Now, I'm also reporting today, and I was on Wayne Root's show yesterday, Wayne Allen Root's show. And I pointed out to him that I've got information that what's going on right now in the agencies in Washington is these criminal traitors are destroying documents. It's a systematic plan. They're coordinating it. They even said, we'll figure out who's going to be the fall guy later. Somebody will have to go to jail for this, but it won't be me. Because they know that they've committed capital crimes. And they're going to destroy the documents. So what I recommended on Wayne's show last night was that we have the Trump lawyers go into federal district court today and ask for an immediate injunction to stop the destruction of the documents. And to enforce that injunction, send in federal marshals to protect the documents in all the federal agencies and stop the shredding of the documents. Find out who's been doing it, charge them with crimes immediately. Okay, if the Justice Department won't do it, that the federal marshals do it. They won't do it, bring in the military and do it. The military won't do it, we'll get private investigators in there and they'll do it. But these documents have to be preserved. Well, Wayne Allen Root said he would get that to President Trump today, and I'm going to make sure that we get that information in there to get the continued crimes of the outgoing Biden administration stopped. And then we're going to get voter integrity. We're going to make sure we have a major revamp of how the state boards of elections function. We get these democratic, criminal, woke, neo-Marxist fascists out of there who think it's clever to steal an election. Well, it's not clever anymore. Obama, we found his birth certificate, the one it was copied from. I found it in Hawaii. Sheriff Arpaio proved that with forensic evidence. The mainstream media wouldn't report it because the CIA didn't approve it. They wanted to lie to you. Well, this is going to come to an end. And officially, I've had enough of it because I've suffered it. They wanted to put me in prison. The Mueller investigation, they thought I had tied to Assange, which I didn't have. They said they were going to put me in prison for the rest of my life because they tried me in front of a jury in D.C. that hated me. And even if I hadn't committed the crime, they'd get a conviction. And I go to prison the rest of my life. Or I could take a plea deal and say that I had a tie with Assange that I didn't want to disclose because I didn't want to hurt President Trump. And then I would be treated very leniently in prison for just a short time. Well, I told him to go shove it. I was not going to go before God and a judge, swear to a lie, an oath to a lie, to keep myself out of prison. I said, you might as well just get the prison cell ready because I'm going. I am not telling your lie to save my hide. They closed down the Mueller investigation. They were the liars. Well, I was through all that Mueller investigation. I've got all the records. I know what they did, and I'm assembling it. And this and the voter registrations and the Kennedy assassination, the book I wrote with David Mantik, the JFK assassination of JFK, the final analysis. And Chris, you can show the covers of some of these books. We're going to be revamping the websites in January. Going to have a new presence on the internet, and we're going to go to a different level. These crimes have got to stop. And I think they're going to stop pretty quickly because we're going to go after them. I've written a number of books here. That's the one on the JFK, the assassination. Just pulled over, there we go. And you can see the x-rays, which show 2 shots from the front. Been lied to for 61 years, going on 62. They're erasing the critical records in those files, so when Donald Trump finally releases them, hopefully, there won't be anything there to find. And a Globalist Manifesto. Get this translated into Italian and publish it in Italy. This will be a book for 2025. So we're doing a lot right here. And I'm going to be having new websites, new design, and it's in the works. Okay, let's go to another story I want to cover. This is the story on Tucker's covering today. Tucker's back in Russia. And Chris, it's about 3 minutes, but what Tucker says is extremely important. And I've reported on this in the American Thinker. Tucker's right. And the American people don't know that we are officially, the Biden administration has put us at war with Russia. Just like he's pardoned his son. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's hear what Tucker has to say.
In the week since we left Russia, Moscow, where we are now, in February, after interviewing Vladimir Putin, we've watched from the United States as the Biden administration has driven the U.S. ever closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia, the country that possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has accelerated ever since, and it's reached its apogee so far in the weeks after Trump's election. He's now the president-elect. In that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers. So we are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing. And because of that war, because of the fact that the U.S. military is killing Russians in Russia right now, we are closer to nuclear war than at any time in history, far closer than we were during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That would mean the elimination of Russia, the United States, and most of the rest of the world. We felt there must be someone behind the scenes in Washington working to make sure that this conflict doesn't become a nuclear holocaust. But we found out that no, in fact, there is nobody. Tony Blinken, the current Secretary of State, cut off all contact between the U.S. and Russian governments. There is no back channel, there is no conversation, and there hasn't been for more than 2 years. That's shocking. Meanwhile, most Americans have no access to any perspective other than that granted to them by NBC News and the New York Times. They don't know how close we are. They don't know the Russian perspective. We've been trying for over a year to get that perspective out to American news consumers. We've also tried for over a year to get an interview with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. We've attacked that from a bunch of different angles. He's spoken to a lot of different people around him, had dinner with them. We've been in talks continuously, and those efforts have been thwarted by the U.S. government. The American embassy in Kiev, which our tax dollars pay for, told the Zelensky government, no, you may not do the interview. You can talk to CNN, you can't talk to us. So we've been unable to speak to him. So we came back to Moscow yesterday to interview the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, the longest serving foreign minister in the world. He's been a part of this government for 25 years. He's been in the diplomatic corps for over 40, and ask him, where exactly are we? Are we headed toward an unprecedented conflict between Russia and the United States? Is there any way to peel Russia back from the east, from the sphere of China, back into the west? Is that alliance permanent? And does the election of Donald Trump mean an end to this war, which is reshaping the world, the U.S. economy, the global economy, and risking the life of every person on this planet? Is that possible? We just walked out of that interview. It's absolutely fascinating. It's coming very soon. We hope you'll watch.
This is going to be extremely important, and he's right on target as usual. Russia changed its nuclear policy recently and said that if there's a non-nuclear country that is using the weapons of a nuclear country to attack Russia, then Russia considers itself at war with the nuclear country. We would put missiles in, we did, France and the UK. Germany wouldn't do it. Germany had at least sense here, not much sense in anything else, but here. Said you can't use our missiles to go into launching into Russia. Well, our military went over there and we launched, half a dozen missiles one day, and then we launched a half a dozen missiles the next day. Most of them got shot down. I doubt if they did any damage at all. And so Russia launched some of these very frightening supersonic missiles, which looked to me to be a kinetic bomb, and destroyed a major military depot in Ukraine. Now, that's just a warning shot, because what Putin's talking about is that he'll go to nuclear weapons. He's going to defend Russian territorial integrity. And you can't have NATO, which was formed for a defensive purpose after World War II, to prevent in 1945, 1946, 1948. People weren't alive. We had an airlift into Berlin because Moscow cut off Berlin. We had to resupply Berlin by air to feed people. Harry Truman and Eisenhower administration were constantly in the Cold War at odds with Russia. The Soviet Union had occupied Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland. They were taking over Eastern Europe. We thought they would move all the way across Europe, and NATO was created to stop that. But it was a defensive alliance. Today, with these Democrats, and the Democrats are insane. The Democratic Party has become a communist party, neo-Marxist, and now it's a traitorous party. It's a treasonous party. They want to destroy the United States of America. And they're doing a damn good job of it. And I'm sick and tired of it. Okay, now Donald Trump won the election. And there's 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. The hand of God was on him. If he hadn't turned his head at the right instant, he'd have been dead. That was in Pennsylvania. I want to know how that shooter got there. And what was the Secret Service doing on the job? Okay, I want these questions answered. And I believe they will be answered in the coming administration. If Donald Trump's got to stay safe, well protected, I think the Secret Service is going to do a better job. I hope he's got additional private involvement and security as well. But the point is, we've got to stop the Biden administration from getting into a nuclear war before the transition occurs. We've got to stop them from destroying documents to protect their criminal behinds from possible treason charges. We've got to get the woke out of the universities. Maybe we should end student tuitions because they're just funding woke professors. And why educate a whole generation of Americans to hate America? That's what the universities are doing. We don't need the universities. They want to teach Satan. Go do it on their own time. Let Satan fund it. Well, Satan's pretty good at it. Look at Act Blue, another crime by the Democrats. The Democrats do not play by moral rules. They play by Satan's rules. They lie, they cheat, they steal. Okay, it's time it comes to an end. Okay, now, there's another article out today, and it has to do with a federal judge. Basically, you're finally getting Trump-appointed Judge Mark Corsi. He ripped into President Biden's decision to pardon his son, saying that, well, the president has broad authority, he cannot rewrite history. Okay, so there was a press release announcing the pardon of Hunter Biden, claiming that any reason, this occurred on Sunday evening. That's the time when you drop news and nobody's paying attention. Drop news you don't want anybody to hear. Any reasonable person concerning reviewing the facts of what Biden said in the press release would conclude that his son was being targeted because of his connection to the president. Political. That's what the Democrats do. Okay, in a filing on Tuesday evening, Corsi, who presided over Hunter Biden's federal tax case in California, criticized the president for misrepresenting the facts in the case. The judge said that it was not the case that Hunter Biden was targeted because he was the president's son. The DOJ rejected that argument because the president's own attorney general and Department of Justice personnel oversaw the investigations leading to the charges in Hunter Biden, even that criminal and politically corrupt Department of Justice, which I'd be happy to put on a barge and send out to the middle of the ocean. I think Death Valley is too good to relocate them. In the president's estimation, this legion of federal servants who, basically brought the indictment, Hunter pleaded guilty to federal tax charges, California case, after allegedly failed to pay estimated $1.4 million in taxes, falsified tax paperwork, wanted to pay off one bill with a painting that included his feces. Probably did that while he was stoned, having sex with some underage, woman who was part of the family. This family, Biden has stolen billions of dollars on a scheme that's bribery. He's the big guy. And, Hunter organized all these investment firms who was running money through Ukraine, which is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Biden got legislation funded to help Burisma, the energy firm where Hunter was on the board, to compete with Gazprom, Russia's on board, and the money was stolen. No charges. That money's just gone. How many billions have we laundered? And say, oh, well, that's okay because Hunter was an agent of the CIA. Well, the CIA is in criminal schemes too. You think we're not running the CIA running the drug trade on the border? I caught HSBC money laundering in 2011, and I gave the information to that House Permanent Investigating and Senate Permanent Investigating Committee, Department of Homeland Security. I met with them for a day in a building downtown in Washington with no windows in it. I handed over all my information. I did not claim whistleblower status. Didn't want to be paid a penny for it. And wasn't, except for reporting. The HSBC was charged $1.9 billion fine, I believe, and charged with money laundering for the Mexican drug cartels. That had to be known by the CIA, by the Department of Treasury, by the NSA that monitors all these wire transfers. And if I could find the scheme, HSBC was using. You mean all our government agencies were blind to it? Nonsense. They were part of the criminal scheme. And TD Bank just got charged $3 trillion in a fine. Nobody goes to jail, again, for participating with the drug trade. We are the drug trade. We are the cartels. It's not some foreign group. So Trump says either Mexico is going to have 25% tariffs, they can go broke for all we care, or they're going to stop these caravans. Mexico turned back 2 caravans. The Biden administration, going back to Obama and Hillary Clinton, have hated America. They wanted to destroy America. And this has got to come to an end. There's a couple of other stories I want to cover very quickly here. And they're important stories that have to do with what's going on in terms of Ukraine and a couple of other things I want to cover very quickly. Let me just find them here for a second. Okay. China is dominating the rare earth minerals. And this is largely with the BRICS. And China's got inroads into South America with Brazil being a BRICS member, South Africa being a member of BRICS, going back just about to its founding. And so China is just dominating. And there's a chart in on Zero Hedge. There's the chart. You can just see how much China is dominating by. That's going to be very important because these rare earth minerals are going to be needed in quantum computing and other advances that we're coming on to. Thank God Trump is back, because wind and solar don't work. You just got graveyards full of turbines that are broken, and these solar panels, one hailstorm comes along and you lose the whole solar panel field. Cylinder was just a scheme to pay off the fundraisers for Obama's 2008 campaign, and Obama's scheme was repeated by the Biden green energy plan. It's all a lie. It's all nonsense. The earth is not warming up because we use hydrocarbon fuels. The science is junk. And the first 100 pages on Google, when you search climate change, are all the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Nonsense. Fake science. I wrote a book on that called The Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change. And it's done extremely well. And Chris will show you the cover. The other book in that series I wrote is The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy. It's another important book. I'll write the third book, God willing, 2025, which is going to be The Truth About Transhumanism, Artificial Intelligence, and Permanent Life Extension. Okay, another story I want to cover on also being covered on, this was the original story here on the rare minerals comes from Visual Capitalist's Kaya Zhu. Okay, so the link is on, you can see the original article if you go to Zero Hedge. And the other article I want to cover, de-dollarization, again, is in the spotlight after Trump's tariff threats on the BRICS. I'm going to redo an article I've been, a paper for Swiss America I've been writing on the BRICS. NATO vows to reject any alternative to NATO membership. Ukraine's going to insist upon being a member of NATO. I think we should expose the amount of cocaine that Zelensky has been doing. I think we ought to expose all of his private bank accounts where the money has been stolen from the U.S. government, and then to see if he wants to join NATO. If the United States quits funding NATO, NATO evaporates. And we should pull out of the World Health Organization and quit funding the UN. That land in the East River would be better made into a parking lot instead of the UN. At least it would serve a useful purpose. And take the whole federal bureaucracy and ship them out to Death Valley. It's too good for them. And let them have all the wind and solar they want. I'm glad Trump's talking about moving the federal bureaucracy out of Washington. Okay, now the other one that I thought was extremely important is that Ukraine is losing in the war, and they are actually suffering. I think there's mass numbers that are just, leaving the Ukrainian army. You don't want to get killed. But when you take a look at the front lines, that the amount to which Russia has advanced is pretty amazing. There's a video on that article in Russian showing how the Russian forces have gained the rapid advances the Russian armed forces this fall as cities and villages in Donbass are being liberated one after the other. I say liberated because these are Russian-speaking provinces. And what you don't get in the press is that Zelensky in the western part of Ukraine is Nazi. It was Nazi in World War II. It's aligned to Germany. They have neo-Nazi brigades with Nazi symbols. Black Sun, the Thunderbolts from the SS. And Poroshenko, before Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, after CIA and Soros deposed Yanukovych, who was duly elected but Russian-oriented in Ukraine. We've been meddling in Ukraine since Hillary Clinton, who also had her own bribery scheme with the Clinton Foundation and her private email server while she was Secretary of State. All these crimes have got to be investigated. Okay, so Russia's now advancing. And there's no way, and if we get Ukraine into NATO, Russia will be at war with NATO and the United States. We already are. This war has got to be brought to an end. If it doesn't, we'll have nuclear war. And I think Trump is on the case. I believe he's appointed some good people to manage this situation. We're going to watch it very carefully. Okay, so we're covering a lot here today, and I think it's a critical period for the world to get through this transition. And I pray God we will get through it with Donald Trump safe, with administration intact, that Lindsey Graham doesn't ruin by going after Pete Hegseth. Lindsey Graham has served his time. His boyfriend is dead, I believe. I don't know if he found a new one or not to live with. It's time he retires. He's been worthless for decades. He never, he's in the crowd, never saw a war he didn't like. Also never saw a war that he was willing to fight. It's time the lying stop. It's time Satan be put back in hell where he belongs, locked in there for another 1,000 years or maybe eternity. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. We will go through a judgment of God. We allowed too many babies to be murdered under Roe v. Wade. Only God can convey life. We've allowed too much of God being taken out of schools since 1940s with our Supreme Court decisions with justices like Justice Black, appropriately named, who I don't think believed in God fundamentally. Enough atheism. Atheists want to have their own cult. Let them fund it themselves. Let them have all the gay prides and transgenderism they want, but get it out of the schools. Get it out of the public domain. They want to have their little sex cults worshiping Satan. Read the book Silicon Satan that Craig Lund has done. And I want Craig to get much more visible with this book. It's an important book, and I wanted to see more in 2025. It tells the real story of the Satanism in Silicon Valley, and it needs to be known. It's a novel, but Craig went through it. He lived it, and he escaped it, which is very rare. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Thank you for joining us on thetruthcentral.com. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. I want to conclude with encouraging everybody in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14. Let's get on our knees and pray that God forgives us for letting all this evil corruption in the Democratic Party and the woke neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, now anarchy to prevail. Let's send it back to hell where it belongs. And if we get on our knees and ask to be forgiven, God will hear the prayer and God will heal the land. Dr. Jerome Corsi will be back every weekday with podcasts here at the Truth Central. Please go to our section on the Swiss America Gold right now is a buying opportunity. It's at $2,641. You're going to see that the stock market right now continues to be buoyed up. It's a bubble. It's going to burst. Get a copy of this free book. The book is Chris will put it up here on the screen. I'll give you the number to call. Here's the book. It's how the coming global crash will create a historic gold rush. And I believe these new world orders in their final death throw will collapse the global economy to give Trump more problems. And gold will soar. The number is 1-800-519-6268. 1-800-519-6268. Please get some of your money out of the stock market and your IRAs. Stock market, Dow Jones at 45,000 points. Could be 35,000 points tomorrow. The bubble will burst. And you'll lose a lot of money if you've got mutual funds that are in the stock market. Swiss American can set up for you a self-directed IRA. It's completely legal. Can let you buy the gold and silver and platinum you want and hold it in a depository. And it's an insured depository in Delaware. It's insured by a Lloyd's of London guarantee. It'll all be legitimate, and Swiss America will handle it. 1-800-519-6268. Also read some of these free reports. The coming global war on cash, secret global war. The government, our government, the Biden administration is right in the middle of it. Get to these reports by clicking various of the icons that are on the homepage. Also get the Walking Liberty $50 offer. If you like the show, support the sponsors. Walking Liberty $50, you get 250 of these coins as an introductory one-time offer for new customers. Swiss America is selling them at virtually their value in silver. It's like a lost leader. They're 99.99% silver. Get some silver and gold. It's going to appreciate. Your dollars are going to go to increasingly devalue in terms of their purchasing power. I'm imploring you to talk to Swiss America. It's consultative selling. You need to educate yourselves for what's coming. Dr. Jerome Corsi, thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.